Tack Lars, Alexander. Trevlig eftermiddag alla. Jag heter Pekka Simula och jag är vd till Herantis Pharma. Och om mitt namn är Pekka så kan ni gissa att jag är finländare och också Herantis är en finländsk bolag. Vi är ganska aktiva också i Sverige men jag ska berätta mer om det om en stund. Och jag måste också säga, som ni ser talar jag gärna svenska men som ni hör min svenska är inte perfekt. Och då det gäller om vetenskap och läkemedelsutveckling måste jag prata på engelska. Det skulle vara för svårt åt mig på svenska. So, Herantis Pharma toward clinical breakthroughs based on leading science. So, Herantis Pharma is a drug development company. And just to start with, because drug development is a very challenging business for investors, where do pharmaceuticals come from? Of course, we are now in Lund, in the heart of Medicon Valley, in the life science region of the Nordic. So I'm sure you have a much better idea of this than maybe the average audience I would have, especially in Finland. But nevertheless, novel drugs are based on science. So in most cases, when there is a novel pharmaceutical product, it's based on some discovery on disease mechanisms or maybe a novel molecule that scientists discover to have interesting features that could be relevant in a treatment of a disease. And this is where a drug development project starts. So we first optimize the molecules, we proceed to laboratory tests, so we learn more about the molecule. Then we proceed into preclinical studies, strictly regulated, and eventually, if everything has proceeded well, and this will have taken years, we reach clinical studies, so we can actually start to treat humans with this potential new drug. And then those clinical studies will take years and years and years. And if they are successful, eventually we have a new pharmaceutical product. And only then we can start selling it. So only then there will be revenue. So of course this requires a lot of investments and very patient investors. There are of course ways to try to capitalize on these investments already sooner. And this is today a very normal practice in drug development. And this is also what our strategy is based on. So we start by leading science. We typically collaborate with leading scientists at universities. We patent their discoveries, and then we start the development exactly as explained, from laboratory through preclinical studies and eventually clinical studies. And when the time is right, if everything goes well and we show that these drugs really seem to work, we will also seek to partner with big pharmaceutical companies. At the same time, all those big pharmaceutical companies are very actively looking for new products in their pipeline. So this is how this world works nowadays. Big pharma companies are looking for small partners and their innovative products. And if there is a collaboration, then they can start paying milestone payments and royalties to the small pharmaceutical company, thereby giving the small pharmaceutical company revenues already before the drug is actually in the market. Och lite sammanfattning på svenska, alltså vi är en läkemedelsutvecklingsbolag och det finns många sådana bolag också i Sverige, även listade bolag i Sverige. Vi är speciellt fokuserade på regenerativ medicin. Och vi har 2 proprietära läkemedel i kliniska tester nu, CDNF mot Parkinsons sjukdom och Lymphedema mot sekundär lymfödem. Båda kliniska studier gör vi också här i Sverige. Och båda är baserade på världsledande medicinsk forskning och vi är nu noterade i First North Finland, alltså Nasdaq First North Helsingfors. Och vi planerar att även notera vår aktie i First North Stockholm senare denna år. So I will tell a little bit about our drug development projects, because of course this kind of a company cannot be assessed from an investor viewpoint using traditional return on investment. You can't use PE values or look at our revenues, because we don't have any revenue, obviously. So it's always important to understand what we are actually doing and then maybe compare us to some peers. That's of course one of the reasons why we are planning a dual listing in Sweden, because in First North Sweden there is a very healthy group of similar drug development companies. Compared to Finland, we are the only public drug development company in Nasdaq First North Finland. So, CDNF for the treatment of Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease is a neurodegenerative disease. It's estimated that roughly 7 to 10 million people in the world have Parkinson's disease, and it's a very heavy societal cost. So it's a progressive disease. It progresses slowly, so typically patients don't die of Parkinson's disease, but for the rest of their life they will be living with a disease that disables them. It will force them to an early retirement in many cases, and then for the rest of their life they will need supported living arrangements and treatments, which are very expensive for the societies. It's estimated that it costs the societies in the world about $50 billion every year. This figure is growing, and of course on top of that there is all the human suffering. And the other striking fact about Parkinson's disease is that L-DOPA or levodopa, which still today is the standard of care in Parkinson's disease, was discovered in 1960s. So it's the standard of care for about 50 years. There hasn't been any big breakthroughs in the treatment of Parkinson's disease since that. And unfortunately, the known therapies only alleviate motor symptoms of the disease. They do not change the disease itself. And that's exactly what we are trying to change. We want to also stop disease progression, which would be a significant breakthrough in the treatment of Parkinson's. CDNF, our drug candidate, is actually a protein that we all have. We all have it in our brains in very small amounts, and its natural role is to keep our neurons alive. And it's been discovered that in a disease pathology, for instance in Parkinson's disease, where the patient's dopaminergic neurons, specific neurons in a small region in our brains, are dying, CDNF can very potently help those neurons survive and help them recover. And if this would really work truly in the clinical patients, it would mean that we could stop progression of the disease, because we could stop the death of those dopaminergic neurons. The natural mechanisms of CDNF are very relevant to Parkinson's disease and also excitingly to many other neurodegenerative diseases. And this slide is from probably the most important animal study done to date with CDNF. This is a study done in rhesus monkeys, so it's a relatively large monkey with Parkinsonism. And just like in humans, Parkinson's disease is caused by the death of dopaminergic neurons. The same way in these animals, there is a significant loss of the dopaminergic neurons in their brains. In the panel on the left, the dark staining indicates dopaminergic neurons. So as you can see, there is a tremendous loss of the dark color. Almost 80% of the dopaminergic neurons are lost. And this results in severe Parkinsonism, so these animals are very apathic. And then these animals were treated with 3 monthly doses of CDNF. And as a result, in the picture on the right, we saw a significant restoration of the dopaminergic function, so much more dark staining in these pictures, indicating that we were able to very much recover the function of the brains in the critical area. And this very nicely correlated with both the gross motor function and fine motor function in the animals. And strikingly, it also, for the first time in the world in this model of Parkinson's disease, it improved the non-motor symptoms of the animals. So these animals became again very active. They started to look for food in their cages, and they started to react to their caretakers and act in many ways like more healthy animals would do as compared to the apathic state they had before. And thanks to this clinical study and the preclinical study, and the results, we were then encouraged to move forward to the first clinical study in Parkinson's disease. And for this study, we also received a significant grant from the European Union. And we are very happy to collaborate with several excellent Swedish hospitals and universities. So this project consortium includes Lund University Hospital, or now the Skåne University Hospital, but here locally we have Professor Håkan Widner, a very experienced and known Parkinson's expert who is treating patients in our clinical study. In Stockholm, we collaborate with both Karolinska Institutet and Karolinska Universitetssjukhuset, where we are treating patients, and then also local to Helsinki, we are treating patients in this clinical study. In this clinical study, it's a first-in-human clinical study with CDNF, so it's the first time in the world ever when this CDNF drug candidate has been administered to people. And therefore, it's a small study. It's now fully recruited. We have 17 patients recruited in the study, and we are looking forward to having top-line results of the study by the end of this year. Of course, we have to remember that this is the first in human study, so these are relatively advanced Parkinson's disease patients, and also it's a very small study, only 17 patients, and also because of regulatory requirements, it's a dose escalation study, which means that the first doses given to the patients are very small, and only gradually the monthly doses are approaching what we believe is the optimal level. So no expert in the world is expecting that at the end of the world we will see a miraculous cure of Parkinson's. But if we'd see in this challenging setup any signals, any positive signals, that would be received with a lot of enthusiasm by the whole Parkinson's community. Now, CDNF is a protein, as I explained, and therefore we are infusing it directly in the brains of the patient with a device here in the picture. So in Parkinson's disease, this is a very common approach, just like in other brain diseases, because our brains are protected with a so-called blood-brain barrier, which prevents toxic compounds from entering in the brains. And unfortunately, the blood-brain barrier also blocks a lot of good things, so drugs from entering the brains. So therefore, CDNF, which is a large protein, doesn't penetrate the blood-brain barrier, so it's infused directly in the brains in this study. Very excitingly, though, we have continued the work and found that there are certain pieces, fragments of CDNF that actually do penetrate the blood-brain barrier and at the same time have retained its biological activity. So we are very excited to be already developing in early preclinical stage the next generation CDNF, which we hope could be administered much more easily and would have further potential in other neurodegenerative diseases. So that was our CDNF program in Parkinson's disease. We have our other drug development program with lymphectin for the treatment of secondary lymphedema. Now, while lymphedema is definitely not as well-known disease as Parkinson's disease, it's actually much more common. And the severe cases of lymphedema are often called by the layman term elephantiasis, or elephant disease. because the disease can result in significant permanent swelling of tissue. The poor lady in this picture has secondary lymphedema associated to breast cancer treatments. So her breast cancer treatment, typically either radiotherapy or removal of lymph nodes in the axilla, result in damage of the lymphatic system, and thereby the liquid starts to accumulate in the arm. And this is not just something that you wake up with a swollen arm and then by the night it's gone. No, this is really a significant health issue. It's a permanent, persistent, and progressive swelling. As you can see, for instance, in this case, the volume of the affected arm can be twice the volume of the healthy arm. Many of these patients are very depressed because of this. Many patients actually say that having to live with lymphedema is worse than when they initially had the breast cancer diagnosis. Again, we are aiming at breakthroughs in drug development, not just symptomatic treatments. So our aim is to repair the lymphatic system with our Lymphectin. The approach is really a textbook example of a regenerative medicine. So in the top picture, you can see that in the sides there is the green lines, which are the lymphatic vessels, are not connected through the entire tissue. So there is a damage in the lymphatic tissue. And our Lymphectin gene therapy is then dosed, just a one single time dose in the damaged area. And it's a gene therapy that expresses a human gene for VEGF-C. Now, I don't expect most of you to know what VEGF-C is, of course, but it's a human growth factor, our natural human protein that's responsible for the growth of lymphatic vessels. So, very simply put, we just help the body to grow new lymphatic vessels in the place where they are currently lacking, and thereby causing the disease. And Lymphectin has already advanced to phase 2 clinical studies. Again, we are also active in Sweden, so we are recruiting patients for this study both at Karolinska University Hospital and also Uppsala University Hospital. Again, two excellent sites. We are really grateful for the good collaboration with the Swedish investigators. And previously, we have completed a phase 1 study, which has shown that Lymphectin, based on the follow-up we have done so far, is safe. We have also seen promising signs of efficacy in a non-controlled way, so we definitely don't want to claim that it's any proof of concept. Therefore, we are in this phase 2 study, which is properly randomized and placebo-controlled. We'll recruit a total of 40 patients. The target is to complete the recruitment by the end of this year, and then after a 12-month follow-up by the end of next year, we will see the results. And of course, we hope that it will tremendously help these patients. So, just to summarize, we are a drug development company whose development programs are still in a relatively early stage. One is in a phase 2 study, so Lymphectin in breast cancer-associated lymphedema. We expect its market potential in the current setting to be about 600 million euros a year. At the same time, if it works in the first very small subset of lymphedema patients, we believe that there's a lot of possibilities to expand in other lymphedema patients. CDNF for Parkinson's disease as a protein therapy to be administered directly in the brains is currently in the phase 1/2 randomized placebo-controlled first-in-human study with readout expected at the end of this year. And then we have the non-invasive next-generation CDNF still preclinical stage, but with very exciting possibilities, if CDNF works, to expand on CDNF, maybe to other neurodegenerative diseases. So to summarize our company's aims, We target disease modification. We don't want to just alleviate symptoms. We really aim at breakthrough in the treatment of diseases. Large and well-defined markets, and very importantly, our work is based on leading science in its fields in the world. It's been published in the leading science journals, including Science and Nature. And as said, we are considering a dual listing in Sweden by the end of this year. And just a word about our management and shareholders. We were very happy in our last funding round that we completed in the spring to introduce Swedbank Roburs Medica Global Healthcare Fund based in Sweden as a new cornerstone investor. They of course bring in also a lot of expertise in this field, and our board of directors is, I'm happy to say, very international. We also have one Swedish board member currently in our board, and of course it's great for us that we can collaborate with leading sites in also Sweden. So thanks very much to collaboration with Lund and Karolinska and Uppsala universities.
Välkommen bort hit. Du får stå på vänstra sidan där av kameravinkelsskäl. Ni är en sammanslagning mellan två bolag. Berätta om det. Vad var motivet till sammanslagning och vilka fördelar har man fått från det?
Ja, alltså Lymphedema kommer från en andra bolag som heter Herantis Pharma, en små finsk bolag, och CDNF mot Parkinsons sjukdom kommer från Pharma. Så då vi kombinerade Hermo och Laurantis får vi Herantis. Och vi bara såg jättebra synergis mellan de två. Alltså, vi har två helt olika läkemedel. En i Parkinsons sjukdom, en mot lymfedema. Men de är båda biologiska läkemedel. Och alla regulatoriska och manufakturering och sådana saker har många synergier som vi kan använda i vårt team.
Det här CDNF, i och med att det är ett protein som förekommer naturligt i kroppen, kan man utifrån det säga någonting om säkerhetsprofilen på förhand, eller måste man vänta på studien?
Ja, vi tror naturligtvis, och det gäller även också på lymfaktin som har VEGF-C som är natural protein i alla människor. Naturligtvis tror vi att det är kanske ganska säkert då vi alla har det i hela kroppen. Men förstås, då vi försöker handla Parkinsons sjukdom med CDNF behöver vi mycket mera CDNF än vi normalt har. Och vi vet också att nivån på CDNF går ner som man blir mer gammal. Men säkert tror vi att vi ser ingen jättestor fara med säkerhet.
Behandlingen med CDNF, är det en gång och sen är man klar, eller är det en livslång behandling?
Jag tror att det skulle kanske vara livslång. Alltså man behöver det i hjärnan för att hjälpa dopaminergiska neurons att stanna kvar med Parkinsons sjukdom.
Och ifall man injicerar det i huvudet via den där lilla hålet som du visade, så antar jag att man måste göra det på någon sorts specialistklinik eller sådär.
Jag tror att det ska jag ta på engelska. Alltså, so Parkinson's disease is often treated with invasive approaches. A common treatment in Parkinson's disease is deep brain stimulation, where the patient is implanted a medical device that does electric stimulation of the same area of the brain. Ironically, it's not known why it works, but many patients with advanced Parkinson's disease get benefit from this treatment. So this helps us very much because it's accepted by the patients and clinicians that there is this kind of a procedure associated with the treatment of Parkinson's disease. So in our case, the surgical procedure required is very similar. So there is one-time surgery to place a very similar device in the head of the patients. But instead of the electricity, there are catheters, 2 catheters on both sides of the head that can then be used to infuse the drug. But the actual infusation, the actual dosing of the drug is very straightforward. So there is a small port behind one ear. That's the only visible part. Otherwise, the entire system is completely invisible. So you wouldn't recognize a patient if you saw one here in the audience. But there is a small port behind the ear, and then once a month, the patient comes to a doctor, is connected to an external pump, the protein is infused, and then the pump is disconnected. So actually the dosing doesn't require anything special. It can be done as a simple outpatient procedure. Just the equipment is of course needed.
Mm. Hur prissätter man ett sånt här läkemedel?
Det är en jättebra fråga, men om man tänker på att det kostar 50 biljon euro eller dollar varje år, alltså 500 miljard kronor varje år att handla med Parkinsons sjukdom globalt, så är det säkert klart att också societies ska vara färdiga att betala för någonting att egentligen stoppar sjukdomsprogress.
Mm. Hur ser konkurrensen ut? Både inom det här proteinet CDNF och inom andra försök att bota Parkinson eller hindra fortsätta progressionen av Parkinsons?
Jag tror att jag ska ta den på engelska. Competition, we wouldn't even call it competition. I mean, our ambition is to help patients with Parkinson's disease. And if someone succeeds there, that would be so important for all the patients and their relatives that it's definitely, we see kind of it as a collaboration. We see the community as a group working together for the same goal. But of course, from a business viewpoint, it's important to understand what could happen if there is one breakthrough here and one here. There are not many truly disease-modifying treatments in clinical development in Parkinson's. So from that viewpoint, there actually aren't too many competitors for us. When it comes to the entire Parkinson's space, there are, of course, several good companies trying to improve the lives of patients. I think one great example here in Sweden is IRLAB. They have their Parkinson drugs in phase 2 studies at the moment. They're also a publicly listed company. If you compare their drug to our drug, they are trying to treat, for instance, Parkinson's dyskinesia. So the involuntary movements that the Parkinson patients have that are caused as a side effect of the drugs they take. So there are so many different ways in treating Parkinson's disease. There's good drug development trying to address side effects of other Parkinson drugs, which is very important. So you can easily guess that, you know, even if both IRLAB and we succeeded, there would be need for both treatments certainly in the market.
BioArctic har också ett noterat bolag i Stockholm som också håller på med Parkinsons. Hur passar de in i er bild?
Jo, deras fokus är mera på Alzheimers sjukdom. Och då är det jätteintressant att se hur en nordisk bolag har avancerat nu till fas 3-studien. Och de har goda partner, som jag sa tidigare, är det typiskt i denna industrin att man får partner med Big Pharma. Alltså de har Eisai, japanesisk läkemedelsbolag som betalar på deras fas 3-studien. Alltså, jag tror att BioArctic är ett jättefint exempel för till exempel oss.
Ja. Tack så mycket Pekka. Tiden har sprungit ifrån oss. Har ni fler frågor till Pekka så kommer du finnas tillgänglig där ute senare.
Jo, jag måste tyvärr lämna ganska snart, men jag ska lämna några annual reports. Det finns också en jättefint artikel med Per Svenningsson, vår Parkinsons professor i Karolinska, som är intervjuat där.
Tack så mycket. En applåd tycker jag.